Let me start by cutting straight through the lie you were taught to admire. There is a belief so deeply ingrained in modern minds that questioning it feels immoral. The belief that kindness, when given freely and endlessly, is always rewarded. That if you remain patient, generous, and forgiving, no matter the cost, the world will eventually return the favor. This idea feels comforting. It sounds noble. It promises peace. But comfort is not truth. And in the real architecture of power, this belief is not virtue. It is a sedative. Kindness without calculation does not elevate you. It exposes you. Think of kindness like light in a dark forest. Used carefully, it reveals paths and keeps danger at bay. But flood the forest with uncontrolled light, and you don't create safety. You make yourself visible from every direction. Predators don't fear light. They use it to aim. This is where most people go wrong. They confuse moral intention with strategic effect. They believe that being good automatically makes them respected. But respect is not born from generosity alone. Respect is born from consequence. And kindness, when stripped of boundaries, carries none. When you give without measure, you teach others how to treat you. You are not rewarded for your virtue. You are categorized by it. Your patience becomes predictable. Your forgiveness becomes expected. Your generosity becomes a baseline. And once kindness becomes expected, it loses all power. Here is the uncomfortable truth. People do not experience your kindness as a gift for long. They experience it as a standard. And standards, once established, are punished when they are withdrawn. This is why the endlessly kind person is often resented, not admired. The moment they hesitate, say no, or pull back, they are no longer seen as human. They are seen as betrayers of an invisible contract they never agreed to sign. What once earned praise now provokes anger. The gift has become a debt. Power does not decay through cruelty alone. It decays through overexposure. The man who is kind to everyone becomes familiar, and familiarity erodes gravity. His words carry less weight because his approval is cheap. His presence feels lighter because it is guaranteed. His favor inspires no effort because it requires no earning. He becomes like water in a flooded market, necessary, abundant, and unnoticed. Contrast this with the man who treats kindness as a controlled instrument. He does not give because he feels compelled. He gives because he chooses. His generosity is not emotional. It is deliberate. It arrives at moments that shift loyalty, reinforce structure, or disarm opposition. And because it is selective, it is valued. This is the first Machiavellian distinction you must understand. Kindness is not a virtue when it is automatic. It becomes a virtue only when it is rare. People are not inspired by what they receive without effort. They are shaped by what they must earn. A kindness that arrives too easily breeds entitlement. A kindness that must be earned breeds discipline. Imagine two rulers. One rewards everyone equally in the name of fairness. The loyal, the lazy, the schemer, and the betrayer all receive the same warmth. At first he is praised as generous, but beneath the praise, something rots. The loyal begin to question their sacrifices. The disloyal learn there is no cost to defiance. The ambitious grow bold, and the ruler, trying to be loved by all, loses the ability to command any. The other ruler is different. His kindness is conditional. His approval is withheld until loyalty is proven. His mercy is not emotional. It is tactical. And because his favor is scarce, it becomes a prize. People compete for it. They guard it once earned, and they fear losing it. This fear is not brutality. it is structure. Kindness without structure is chaos dressed as compassion. You were taught that harshness is immoral and that restraint is weakness. But in the realm of power, restraint is precision. The strongest men are not universally kind. They are selectively generous. They understand that boundaries do not destroy relationships, they define them. When everyone receives the same treatment regardless of behavior, hierarchy collapses. And without hierarchy, there is no leverage. Without leverage, there is no control. And without control, there is only noise pretending to be harmony. Here is the metaphor you must sit with. Kindness is currency. If you print too much of it, it inflates. It loses value. And soon, no one respects it, not even you. True power does not come from being liked. It comes from being measured. When people must think before approaching you, when your approval is not guaranteed, when your warmth is earned rather than assumed, something changes. Your presence gains density. Your words gain weight. Your silence gains meaning. The most dangerous man is not the one who is never kind. He is predictable and easy to label. The truly dangerous man is the one whose kindness is controlled. He is capable of warmth, but not ruled by it. He can forgive, but not compulsively. He can give, but not indiscriminately. His kindness is not a personality trait. It is a strategic decision. This is the awakening most people resist, because it demands letting go of the fantasy that being good will protect you. It demands accepting that respect is built, not gifted. And it demands the courage to be misunderstood by those who benefited from your unguarded generosity. If this unsettles you, it should. Growth always begins with discomfort. You are not being asked to become cruel. You are being asked to become deliberate, to stop leaking power through unexamined virtue, to stop mistaking emotional comfort for strength. Kindness is not your enemy. Uncontrolled kindness is, and until you learn the difference, you will keep wondering why doing the right thing keeps costing you everything. Once you understand that kindness is currency, the next illusion collapses even faster. The belief that love creates loyalty. This is one of the most dangerous misunderstandings in power dynamics. People assume that if others feel cared for, appreciated, and emotionally connected, they will stand by them when it matters. It feels logical. It feels humane. But loyalty born from affection is fragile. It survives comfort, not pressure. The moment conditions change, affection evaporates, and with it, the loyalty you thought you had secured. Affection is emotional. Loyalty is structural. When you rule through warmth alone, you rule through feelings, and feelings are unstable. They shift with convenience, with mood, with opportunity. A man who depends on being loved must constantly maintain that love. He must keep giving, keep pleasing, keep smoothing tension. And every time he does, he signals something dangerous. That his authority depends on approval. Approval is a leash disguised as praise. The people beneath him sense it. Even if they cannot articulate it, they feel it. They realize that his greatest fear is not disorder or betrayal, but disapproval. And once that fear is detected, it becomes leverage. The ruler becomes cautious, hesitant, reactive. He governs not by will, but by anxiety. This is how power rots quietly. Contrast this with fear, not panic, not cruelty, but fear of consequence. Fear is rational. It forces calculation. A man who fears consequences thinks before acting. He weighs risks. He restrains impulse. Fear creates boundaries where affection creates expectations. This is why those who are truly feared are rarely betrayed, not because they are monsters, but because the cost of betrayal is clear, credible, and unavoidable. Fear does not require constant violence. It requires consistency. It requires that lines exist and that crossing them leads somewhere painful enough to be remembered. Think of fear as a fence, not a whip. A fence does not need to attack. Its presence alone defines where movement ends. And when people know where the fence is, they adapt their behavior accordingly. Affection, by contrast, removes fences. It invites closeness without conditions. And closeness without conditions dissolves authority. This is why excessive kindness often produces entitlement. When people receive warmth regardless of behavior, they begin to feel deserving of it. And entitlement is not gratitude. It is resentment, waiting for an excuse. The moment you withdraw what was freely given, the entitled feel cheated. They do not reflect on their actions. They accuse you of changing. They call you cold. They question your character, not because you became unjust, but because you stopped subsidizing their comfort. Here is the metaphor. Affection is a candle in the wind. Fear is a weight on the ground. One flickers, the other anchors. This does not mean you must be brutal. Brutality creates hatred, and hatred invites rebellion. The mistake of tyrants is believing fear must be loud. It doesn't. True fear is quiet. It is embedded in memory, reinforced by example, and sustained through restraint. One decisive act, delivered without emotion, can establish order more effectively than years of generosity. People remember consequences longer than kindness, not because they are evil, but because consequences teach structure. This is the discipline most people lack. They punish late, inconsistently, or emotionally. When punishment is delayed, it feels vindictive. When it is emotional, it feels personal. And when it is inconsistent, it feels arbitrary. All three destroy authority. But when consequence is swift, proportionate, and unemotional, it feels inevitable. And inevitability is power. The wise man does not seek to be loved. He seeks to be understood. Understood as someone who rewards loyalty, punishes betrayal, and does not negotiate his boundaries. His generosity is real, but it is not guaranteed. His warmth exists, but it is not free. This creates a different kind of loyalty, one rooted not in feelings, but in respect. Respect is heavier than love. It does not require constant feeding. It survives disappointment. It endures discomfort. And when people respect you, they adjust themselves around you without being told. They lower their voice. They choose their words. They think twice. Love asks to be reassured. Respect asks permission. This is why leaders who chase affection end up surrounded by dependents, not allies. Dependents stay as long as benefits flow. The moment resources tighten or demands increase, they disappear. Allies, by contrast, are forged through boundaries. They remain because they have invested effort, discipline, and identity into the structure you represent. Boundaries are not walls, they are tests. They reveal who is serious and who is merely comfortable. When you enforce standards, some people will leave. Let them. Their departure is information. It tells you who was never aligned with you in the first place. The weak interpret boundaries as rejection. The strong interpret them as challenge. And here is the awakening most refuse to face. A smaller circle built on respect is stronger than a larger one built on affection. Numbers impress the insecure. Structure sustains the powerful. If you feel resistance to this idea, ask yourself why. Is it because it is wrong, or because it threatens the image you built as the good one? The one who never says no, the one who absorbs discomfort to keep peace, the one who mistakes harmony for control. Peace without order is temporary. Order without clarity is tyranny, but order with clarity is authority. And authority, when exercised with restraint, creates a stability that kindness alone never will. In the next stage, we will confront the final illusion, the belief that justice must always be gentle and that harshness is inherently immoral. Because until you understand the role of severity, you will never fully understand power, and power misunderstood is power lost. There is a lie wrapped in moral language that destroys more leaders than rebellion ever could. The belief that justice must always be gentle, that firmness is cruelty, that severity is a moral failure. This belief feels righteous, but it is naive. And naivete in positions of authority is not compassion. It is negligence. Justice is not softness. Justice is clarity. When people fear being harsh, they hesitate. They delay. They negotiate with behavior that should have been corrected immediately. They tell themselves they are being patient, understanding, humane. But what they are really doing is teaching everyone watching that boundaries are flexible, that consequences are optional, and that authority can be worn down through persistence. Leniency without limit does not create loyalty. It creates boldness. The ambitious notice first. They test the edges. They violate norms in small ways, watching carefully to see if anything happens. When nothing does, they push further. The lazy grow comfortable. The dishonest grow clever. And the obedient, the ones who followed the rules, begin to feel foolish for doing so. This is how systems decay from the inside. A leader who fears severity confuses compassion with effectiveness. He believes that avoiding pain preserves harmony. But pain avoided today multiplies tomorrow. Disorder is not prevented by kindness. It is prevented by consequence. Here is the metaphor you must internalize. Justice is fire. Controlled, it hardens steel. Uncontrolled, it burns everything. Avoided entirely, it allows rot to spread. Harshness, when applied with precision, is not cruelty. It is instruction. It draws a visible line between what is tolerated and what is not. And people need lines. Without them, they drift. They experiment. They transgress. The mistake most people make is thinking punishment is about revenge. It is not. Punishment is communication. It tells the group what behavior leads where. It educates not just the offender, but every observer. One disciplined correction, delivered early, can prevent 100 future violations. One public consequence can stabilize an entire structure. This is why delayed severity feels unjust. When a leader finally snaps after months of tolerance, his response appears emotional, arbitrary, even petty. But when severity is immediate and measured, it feels inevitable. Inevitability is authority's strongest ally. Those who recoil at harshness often say, "But people will hate you." This reveals a deeper fear, the fear of being disliked. But leadership is not a popularity contest. It is a burden, and burdens require decisions that will never please everyone. A leader who avoids being disliked will eventually be despised. Why? Because people do not respect indecision masked as kindness. They sense weakness. They exploit it. And when collapse comes, they blame the same leader they once praised for being gentle. Severity, when justified, protects the innocent. A system that refuses to punish wrongdoing in the name of compassion becomes a feeding ground for predators. The strong exploit the weak. The dishonest thrive. The disciplined lose faith. In that environment, kindness becomes cruelty because it allows harm to continue unchecked. This is the paradox most refuse to confront. Sometimes the most compassionate act is the one that feels harsh. Removing one disruptive force can save the morale of many. Enforcing one painful consequence can prevent a culture of decay. Think of it like pruning a tree. Cut nothing, and the branches tangle, rot, and collapse under their own weight. Cut too much, and the tree dies. But cut precisely, and the tree grows stronger, healthier, and more resilient. Leadership is pruning. Those who misunderstand severity also misunderstand fear. They imagine fear as chaos, screaming, violence. But fear at its highest form is quiet. It is the calm awareness that certain lines do not exist to be tested. The strongest leaders do not need to threaten. Their past actions speak for them. Their restraint makes their capacity credible. People do not fear their anger. They fear their certainty. Certainty is terrifying to those who live by manipulation. A single example of justice, executed without apology, does more than 1,000 warnings. It tells everyone, this system is real. These rules matter. And mercy, when given, is a privilege, not a right. This is where true authority emerges, not from constant enforcement, but from the knowledge that enforcement exists and will be used if necessary. The weak complain that this is cold. The entitled call it cruel. The disciplined call it fair. And here is the truth they won't tell you. Every structure you admire, every institution, every legacy, every enduring order was preserved not by endless kindness, but by the willingness to be severe when the moment demanded it. Justice that never bites is not justice, it is suggestion. A leader who cannot impose cost cannot preserve order, and a leader who cannot preserve order will eventually be replaced, often violently, by someone who can. If this unsettles you, good. It means you are shedding the fantasy that morality alone governs the world. Morality without strength is ignored. Strength without morality is resented. But morality enforced through strength is respected. In the next stage, we will confront the most seductive trap of all, the need to be approved, liked, and affirmed. Because until you sever that need, every boundary you set will eventually be negotiated away. And power that negotiates its own limits is already lost. At the center of every collapsed authority, there is the same hidden addiction, the need to be approved. Approval is subtle. It does not announce itself as weakness. It disguises itself as empathy, openness, approachability, even humility. But beneath all of it is the same hunger. The desire to be liked, affirmed, validated. And once that hunger enters a position of power, authority begins to leak from every seam. The man who seeks approval does not lead. He negotiates his existence. He watches faces. He measures reactions. He adjusts his words to avoid discomfort. He explains himself when no explanation is required. He softens decisions that should have been final, and slowly, without realizing it, he hands control of his behavior to the very people he is supposed to govern. Approval turns leadership into performance. When you depend on being liked, you become predictable. People learn what pleases you, what offends you, what makes you retreat. They begin to manage you. They smile while testing limits. They flatter while extracting concessions. They nod while quietly disobeying. And because you fear losing their affection, you tolerate what should never be tolerated. This is the psychological trap Machiavelli warned about centuries ago, not because he despised goodness, but because he understood human nature. People do not follow those who seek permission to act. They follow those who act and let others adjust. Approval seeking in leadership is like steering a ship by watching the waves instead of the compass. Every reaction pulls you off course. Every complaint becomes a crisis, and the destination is forgotten entirely. Here is the metaphor. Approval is a mirror. The more you stare into it, the less you see the road ahead. Those who govern through approval become emotionally reactive. They punish inconsistently. They reward excessively. They hesitate when decisiveness is required. And when pressure rises, they fracture because their authority was never internal. It was borrowed from the crowd. The truly powerful man does not ask, "How will this make me look?" He asks, "What does this preserve?" Preservation is the highest responsibility of leadership. Preservation of structure, preservation of order, preservation of standards. Approval does not preserve anything. It erodes. This is why the most respected figures are rarely the most liked. They are often misunderstood, criticized, even resented, but they are obeyed. And obedience, unlike affection, does not evaporate under pressure. Affection depends on mood. Obedience depends on expectation. Once people know that your disapproval has weight, they begin to self-regulate. You do not need to speak often. You do not need to threaten. Your silence becomes instructive. Your withdrawal becomes corrective. This is the power of restraint. Most men think authority is built by asserting dominance. In reality, authority is built by refusing to chase, by refusing to explain, by refusing to bargain with those who have nothing to offer but approval. Silence is not absence. Silence is space. And space forces others to fill it, with caution. When you stop explaining yourself, something remarkable happens. People either rise to meet your standards or drift away. Both outcomes are beneficial. Those who remain do so by choice, not entitlement. Those who leave reveal themselves as liabilities you no longer need to manage. Approval seekers fear this moment. They fear being misunderstood. They fear being labeled cold, but labels are noise. Structure is signal. A man who governs himself does not require universal acceptance. He requires alignment. Alignment is heavier than agreement. Agreement can be faked. Alignment cannot. This is why the most dangerous leaders are calm. They do not react to criticism. They do not rush to correct narratives. They do not plead their case. They allow time to reveal truth, because time favors structure over sentiment. Think of approval as fog. It makes everything feel close, warm, and immediate. But it obscures distance and direction. Power requires clear sight, and clear sight demands detachment. Detachment does not mean cruelty. It means independence. The moment you stop needing to be liked, your posture changes. Your voice slows. Your decisions sharpen. Your presence gains gravity. People feel it before they understand it. And this is where fear quietly re-enters. Not fear of violence, but fear of exclusion. Fear of losing access. Fear of falling out of favor with someone whose favor is no longer automatic. This fear is productive. It organizes behavior. It creates discipline without chaos. Approval-seeking leaders are surrounded by noise. Respected leaders are surrounded by caution. And caution is the beginning of order. In the final stage, we will bring everything together: kindness, fear, justice, restraint, and show how true loyalty is forged. Not through comfort, not through generosity, but through discipline that transforms those who endure it. Because the deepest loyalty is not to the man who made life easy, it is to the man who made you stronger. True loyalty is not born in comfort, it is forged in pressure. This is the final illusion you must release. The belief that loyalty grows where life is easy, where demands are low, and where generosity flows without resistance. Comfort does not bind people to you. It softens them. It makes them dependent, restless, and disposable. The moment the comfort ends, so does their allegiance. Loyalty that survives is built differently. It is built through standards. Standards create friction. Friction creates effort. Effort creates investment. And investment creates attachment that cannot be easily broken. People do not protect what cost them nothing. They protect what demanded discipline, sacrifice, and self-respect. This is why boundaries are not obstacles to loyalty. They are its foundation. When you require something of others, consistency, competence, restraint, accountability, you force a choice. Some will walk away. Let them. Their departure is proof that they were never loyal, only comfortable. Those who remain do so because they accept the structure you represent. They grow within it, and in growing, they bind themselves to it. Here is the final metaphor. Loyalty is steel. It is not poured, it is forged. Heat, pressure, repeated strikes. Remove any of these, and you do not get strength. You get shape without substance. The leader who gives endlessly builds followers who collapse at the first sign of hardship. The leader who demands builds allies who endure. This principle applies everywhere: leadership, business, relationships, even private life. The man who never says no becomes invisible. The man who sets limits becomes defined. And definition is what allows others to orient themselves around you. You were taught that setting boundaries would make you lonely. The truth is more precise. Boundaries make you selective, and selectivity is strength. When kindness is rare, it matters. When approval is withheld, it motivates. When consequences are real, behavior aligns. This is not cruelty. It is order. Order is the quiet force behind every enduring system. Without it, generosity rots into entitlement. Mercy mutates into weakness, and authority dissolves into performance. The strongest leaders understand something simple and brutal. People rise to expectations or flee from them. Both outcomes serve clarity. This is why justice rooted in strength appears harsh only to those who benefit from chaos. To those who value structure, it feels safe. It creates predictability. It allows effort to matter. A man who enforces standards is not feared because he is cruel. He is feared because he is consistent. His rules do not bend with emotion. His decisions do not wobble with guilt. His kindness does not erase consequence. This consistency creates something rare. Trust. Not emotional trust. Structural trust. The trust that the system will hold. That betrayal will cost. That loyalty will be recognized. That order will be preserved even when it is uncomfortable. And from this trust, something deeper than affection emerges. Commitment. Commitment is what remains when pleasure fades, when praise disappears, when rewards are delayed. Commitment is loyalty that does not need constant feeding. This is why leaders obsessed with being liked are abandoned at the first storm, while leaders obsessed with structure are defended even in silence. Respect does not need applause. It needs coherence. Now look back at the man you were taught to be. the agreeable one, the endlessly patient one, the one who absorbed disrespect to keep peace. Ask yourself honestly, did that path make you powerful or manageable? Power does not live in approval. It lives in restraint. It lives in knowing when to give and when to withhold, when to forgive and when to cut away, when to speak and when silence will do more damage than words ever could. To stop being kind to everyone is not to become cruel. It is to become just, to apply warmth with intention, to reserve mercy for those who strengthen the structure rather than weaken it. The world will mislabel you for this. Let it. The weak always calls strength cruelty when it denies them comfort. The entitled always call boundaries injustice when it exposes their dependency. But those who understand will recognize what you've become. A man whose kindness has weight. A man whose silence carries consequence. A man whose presence is not cheap. A man who is respected not because he pleases, but because he preserves. In a world addicted to softness, clarity feels brutal. In a world chasing approval, restraint feels radical. But this is the path of real influence. Stop being kind to everyone. Be just. Be consistent. Be feared when necessary. Be generous only when it strengthens the order. And when you do, loyalty will no longer beg for comfort. It will stand unshaken beside you.